Nobody seems to be talking about the American hostages, so we're going to be talking about them here, friends. There are 8 American hostages still being held by Hamas out there, and nobody is talking about it. This is day 240. Day 240, where 8 American hostages are still being held by Hamas. And we're going to be talking about how much money the United States is giving Hamas, who is holding American hostages. We got a lot to talk about, friends, and I'm going to rant just a little bit because I am ticked off, as I know you probably are as well. Not only are we funneling money into terrorist organizations still, yes, because this is a pattern with one of the parties inside the United States. Like, let's give as much money to terrorist organizations as we can so that they'll be nice to us. Well, they're not being nice to us, friends. Let's jump into it. Welcome to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade, and we cover things that the news media absolutely will not cover out there. And this is one of those topics. We're building infrastructure so that we can give more and more money to Hamas. Now, they're saying it's humanitarian aid. Now, I worked doing humanitarian work overseas, and let me tell you, let's just cut the crap, okay? Let's just cut through it. If you give somebody a bag of rice, you are basically giving them cash. If you give them a bag of flour, that's as good as cash. You can sell that to anybody. And that's exactly what happens in Gaza. Okay, that's what happens in Gaza. That's what happens anywhere else in the world. You give an organization or people bags of rice, bag of flour, bag of whatever, bottles of oil, you're giving them cash. Now, you're making it like a little bit harder for them, but you're basically just giving them cash. They do this all over the third world. You give them food and stuff like that. I did work for food programs where I was paying a village full of people, and we really tried hard to make sure that the people who were supposed to get paid showed up and took the flour bags themselves. But we knew exactly what happened. As soon as we drove away, they had their guys. The guys would go around and make sure that all of the workers who had got paid, that they had to make sure that they gave a cut to the person that organized it all. The mob boss, so to speak. That's just common practice, okay? So even when you give it to the people that need it directly, some of it still gets siphoned off. And that was in like a high control, relatively good place where we could kind of control what was going on. You think we're controlling what's going on with the food deliveries over in Gaza? Americans aren't even on the soil. So no, we're basically handing it to Hamas and just hoping it gets to the right place. And some of it is. And when they hand it out, you think that everyone's like, wow, gee, thanks so much for the Americans who came over here and gave us this flour. No, they're being handed flour by Hamas, and they're saying, thank you, Hamas. Thank you, Islamic Jihad Brigade. Thank you, terrorist organization, for giving me food because no one else would give me food. So we're giving them a PR win in the first place because they seize it and then they distribute it themselves and then they try to take credit for it all. Okay? Now, people may see through it because, we like to stamp things all over the bags and everything like that, but let's just say a lot of people can't read, if you know what I mean. Anyway, so all this, and how much? So they take our people hostage, and just on February 27th, we approved an additional $53 million in weapons and cash. Humanitarian relief, which is being turned into weapons and cash. So I promise you, that's what's happening. That's in addition to the $130 million we've given them since October 13th. They go and massacre a whole bunch of Israelis, which, let's be frank, that's Israel's problem. It is an awful tragedy. Our American president should be over there denouncing it and, giving them, whatever advice and things that we can give them with, where we share our expertise with them, maybe even give them some satellite imagery and stuff like that. Now, I don't know about us giving them all sorts of free weaponry. I think they should pay for it. I mean, we should be friends, but we shouldn't be like sugar daddies. But anyway, they go and do that to Israel. But, let's face it. When they do that to Israeli citizens, that's Israel's responsibility to do something about that. And we respect their right to go do something about that and try to rescue their hostages, right? But when they take American citizens hostage, that's a different thing. Remember when the Iranians took 50 Americans and we flew off the handle and went nutso on Iran? Well, we had a whole bunch of American hostages taken, a bunch of them killed. Hostages shouldn't be killed after they're taken. That's not how hostage taking works. But when you hear the stories of what has happened to Israeli hostages as well as American hostages, the stories of how they were treated in captivity will raise the hair on the back of your neck and make you think that maybe these organizations need to be wiped off the face of the earth, which is what Israel's doing. Now, these organizations are putting people in between them and the Israeli military, and that's a reality of conflict that the protesters who are surrounding the White House yesterday, lighting off smoke grenades and lighting off flares and everything like that, they don't quite understand that Americans are still being held hostage. I think we should take those protesters, transplant them over to Gaza, and let Hamas decide what to do with them. Because I don't think that they would pat them on the back and say, "Good job, guys." I think that what they do is they take them hostage, possibly chop some of their heads off and stuff like that. Because that's what they do. And they don't see Americans and go, "Oh, wow, those are nice people. They're our kind of people." No, that's not how it works at all. Those people want to, they don't want democracy. They don't want any of these things for themselves. So we have this $53 million plus the $130 million. That's $183 million to be exact so far. And that was through the end of February. And you know that they've signed more stuff and given them more aid since then. And then we're not even talking about the pier debacle. We're getting into that, where the United States apparently used the pier in partnership with the Israeli Defense Forces. There's a video out there which now Hamas is saying the pier itself is now a legitimate military target. We've been saying that was going to happen all along. And now they're saying that's what they're going to do. They're going to try sinking the thing with Americans on board. Yeah, this is just straightforward stuff. We say stuff because it's clear what's going to happen. I mean, there are a whole bunch of channels out there saying that inevitably Hamas and its allies are going to attack the pier. They're just going to find some justification for it. They found the justification because the video shows the Israeli Defense Force helicopter landing right next to the pier with the hostages and the soldiers on board under the cover of the air defense cannons of the U.S. Navy. Okay? We put some air defense, missile defense systems there, and they're using that as cover. Now, what else were they doing with that? Did they stage from the pier itself? Possibly. Do they use intelligence gathered from the relief trucks that left from the pier and went inland? Is that how they found the hostages? And is that where they got the intel from? Possibly, and Hamas thinks that that's exactly what happened. Now, whether they're right or wrong, you got to rescue hostages. Were any of those hostages Americans? We have not heard that any of them are Americans. In fact, the ones that were released, the names that were released, none of them were American hostages. So we still have 8 American hostages. 3 have been confirmed to be dead now. And Hamas won't even release their bodies. So they're still being counted as hostages. But the other 5 are believed to be alive still. So have we seen President Biden and his administration come out there and say, Hamas, you're not getting a dime from us or anyone else until you release our hostages? No, he hasn't said that. In fact, he's been like, here's more free money. Here's more free money. Are we conditioning that free money on, okay, but you have to release all the American citizen hostages? Nope, not doing that either. We're going to give you $180 million for taking our hostages, for consequences happening. Hamas messed around and found out. And the United States is like, well, we can't have that. We got to pay for them. We got to send them money. So $180 million of direct relief, but then we also built a pier, a $320 million pier. And let's just say that number is conservative. That's how much the pier itself costs, not how much it costs to ship it across the world, literally the world. It came from Virginia, folks. And some of the ships actually had to turn back because they had engine problems, had to come back, and then other ships had to take the pieces out there. So not only do we have like half a fleet involved in taking all of this equipment over there, but then you have the warships sitting just off the coast. I mean, we have to pay their salaries, we have to use their fuel, and they're sitting there instead of threatening some other country out there. And so there's issues with that. We now have our air defense systems that we've installed on the ground there. Yeah, on the ground. And then we had the storm come in and messed up the pier and knocked it off. And they had to go find it and bring it back over. That cost another $22 million to reinstall it. It's hopefully back open again, just in time for the hostage rescue to use it as air cover. Friends, we're dumping money like nobody's business. It seems like the more you do to America, the more money we give you. How much money do we give Iraq? How much money did we give Afghanistan? And these are governments that are run by the very people that we were hunting. The guys running the Taliban government over in Afghanistan were literally on the deck of cards. These were the guys that we were trying to detain. Some of them held in Guantanamo Bay are now in government positions over in Afghanistan, who we are giving millions and millions and millions of dollars, actually now multiple billions of dollars. We're up to $2 billion since the collapse of the Afghan government and replacement by the Taliban. We have now given the Taliban over $2 billion. So the more you kill Americans, apparently, the more money you get. The problem with Hamas is they just haven't killed enough Americans, apparently, or else we'd give them more money. So they're working on that. They're working on that, just like all the other groups out there are figuring that out. When you reinforce bad behavior by rewarding bad behavior, what do you think is going to happen? We're not putting any pressure whatsoever. Other governments have stepped out and said, Hamas, you will give us back our people. And Hamas has quietly given them back their people. Countries have gone out there and put their foot down. Countries that don't have anywhere near the military power that the United States has. And they've gotten their people back. Why is that different than the United States? Why are we giving so much money and yet getting nothing in return? We're not threatening them. We're not buying them. We're not bribing them. I mean, Jimmy Carter had a stupid strategy for getting the people back. But you know what? At least he had a strategy. Biden doesn't have a strategy at all. He's just okay with those Americans just being written off. And I don't see how at day 240 you can make the case that he's done anything else other than write those Americans off. He's been negotiating for ceasefires to keep the Israeli Defense Forces from rescuing those American hostages. Were those peace deals that we were trying to get them to sign, were they going to actually result in the release of American hostages? Not in phase 1. Hopefully in phase 2 of those. Absolutely insane. They were going to have the Israeli Defense Force completely pull out of Gaza before Hamas released any of the hostages. It's just like absolutely insane. What other hostage situation has ever been run like this? Where have Americans abandoned people so readily? And nobody remembers that on day 240. Are we going to remember them on the 1-year anniversary? How many years will it take for them to be released? How many years before the bodies are released of American citizens? Friends, has Hamas tried to give up? Has Hamas tried to surrender? No. And there's people out there saying, oh, well, what Israel's doing is terrible. It is terrible. And it's necessary. Are you seeing what has been done to them by organizations that refuse to surrender and continue to hide in civilian populations? That's not a resistance movement. These organizations have been offered their a Palestinian state many times, and they keep refusing because they know that if they receive a Palestinian state and then they try to do the stuff that they've just done recently, that they would be wiped out. And nobody would have half the concern. They're using their not having a state as political leverage, and they have been for many, many years. Go back and look at the negotiations. Israel has supported the two-state solution so many times. Now, they've quibbled over a few of the items. They've offered the two-state solution, but they were not going to give up Jerusalem. That was the only thing that Israel's like, we'll give you your state, we can negotiate all the other things, but we keep Jerusalem. And the Palestinian authorities were like, nope, that's unworkable. We need to be independent, we need Jerusalem, and we need a whole bunch of other territories within Israel, and we need to be able to continue attacking you, which has been not really a negotiating position as much a chant that they chant. It's infuriating, and yet it's continuing. All right, friends, if you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up here. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you guys again tomorrow. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report, out.